Good morning. This is Kim De Silva from Language of Relationships, and welcome to Spanglish World Networks on Zingo TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Zingo TV app on the respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 forward. So, hello, Jen. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, Kim.
So, everyone, I'm happy to introduce you to my friend Jen. She is a life and mindset coach. Now, Jen is also a course creator, but we'll talk about that too. Don't worry. Well, one of the main things that we really want to talk about today is your mindset, because I
Mhm.
mean we look at issues like anxiety and people pleasing, even boundary setting, and procrastination comes into here too, Jen. And this is what Jen works with, because these are all issues that we may be dealing with for ourselves. Obviously, it affects us in unique ways, but it doesn't just impact us, it impacts those closest to us as well, which then can have a knock-on effect back to us. So it can a vicious
Absolutely.
cycle.
Yes, it is a cycle. It can be a cycle for sure. Yes.
Exactly. So that's why Jen is here today to talk to us about this, how we can get out of that cycle. What signs should we be looking out for? What can we do to cope? What can we do to overcome? Okay, what can we do to thrive? So thank you, Jen, for being here. And I don't know if there's anything you want to add it to let us know, about who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Kim. I'm so grateful that we are connected. So, like Kim said, my name is Jenn Hynes. My background is actually in healthcare. I've been a physical therapist for 25 years as well, and that's kind of what started my trajectory into life coaching. Is I was kind of at a point where I feel like a lot of people may feel they're stuck in a rut of their career as moms, trying to do their job the best they can, run a household, be the best mom, parent, partner, employee, all of those things. And I was really feeling burned out and overwhelmed. And I was just struggling to take care of myself. Like I was working out, I was eating healthy, but I was doing, self-help books. I was, doing everything that I thought that I could. And at that time, I was also a wellness coach, and on one of our team calls, a life coach came to speak to us, and I really resonated with her message and loved her vibe. So I got on a call with her, ended up hiring her because she gave me a treatment plan is what I call it, is in physical therapy, to really help me get out of that rut. And I fell in love with my own transformation to the point where I became a certified life coach myself so that I could help women just like me overcome that burnout and overwhelm and kind of put myself back on my priority list. And that's why I love working with women that yeah, getting tongue tied, specifically women that are trying to juggle all the things or feel like they have to juggle all the things and do them perfectly. So,
That's it. And that is such a common story, because the
yes.
reality is, in today's world, we I don't think we've ever had just one or two roles to play, but it's
Mhm.
exacerbated now. I mean,
Mhm.
because we're not just trying to manage our lives, we're trying to help our children manage their lives. We're trying to, in some cases, we're trying to help elderly parents or elderly family members, and then there's the whole partner thing, and we're not supposed to help them manage their lives, but yet somehow we end up in the middle of
We
that.
do. Yeah, we do. Yes.
Exactly. So,
And
um,
it's a lot. And then we have society putting all these pressures on us that as women, we have to do it all and then do it
exactly.
perfectly and not complain or look like we're struggling, right? So there's
Mhm,
just all these like outside pressures as well. So it's a struggle. It can definitely be a struggle.
mhm. And I mean, I don't know what is your preferred word. Some people like to use the word balance when they talk about all the different roles. Some people like to use the word flow and ease. I mean, honestly, to me, what works for you works for you. There's no right or wrong word, but what is the word that you find resonates most for you and the people that you deal with?
I love the word balance, but I also love the word just like harmony, right? Like living in a more harmonious kind of life, because we all know that we're never going to be perfectly balanced. There's always going to be different parts of our life that are going to take a priority at certain times, whether it's your kids, your marriage, your elderly parents, your job. Like we're never going to be a flat line, right? It's always going to be up and down, but just, finding that balance or harmony where you can kind of ebb and flow in those different parts of your life with more ease and more coping skills is kind of what I love to do as a life coach.
Right. Perfect. Okay. So if we're looking at trying to create that harmony, all right, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges to creating it? I mean, we see it, we're like, okay, I don't, as you said, you were in this situation too. You felt that
Mhm.
that sense of being in a rut. You felt that things weren't necessarily moving where they needed to be. Um, and you wanted that harmony in your life.
Mhm.
What were the biggest challenges, I guess, for you at that time? And then even for what from your work, what do you see being the challenge to getting to that harmony?
The biggest one is that women don't feel like they deserve the harmony, right? They just don't feel like they're worthy enough um, to deserve the ideal life, like the dream, the life we dreamed of as a little girl. They kind of forgot about that, and they don't deem themselves worthy enough to have have it all. You know what I mean? They feel like they need to sacrifice. They feel like they need to people please and do for others more than themselves. And there's a lot of great things about giving to others. And I'm not saying nothing that I'm going to say today is going to say don't give and serve, but you have to give and serve to the when you want to, not because you feel you have to or need to, right? Because that's where resentment and burnout and overwhelm comes in, is when we serve and serve and overserve and we're not taking care of ourselves. In
Mhm.
addition to that, we start to feel that resentment and overwhelm and burnout. So I think the first thing that I really help my clients with and help myself with is just realizing that I am worthy
Mhm.
of having that balanced life.
Exactly, exactly. And then it's not something to feel guilty about when you do achieve it.
Yes.
This is what
Correct.
this is what we want for you. Um,
Right.
Now,
Yes.
we're going to talk about anxiety, but as
Okay.
you mentioned, people pleasing, I kind of want to for you
Mhm.
to jump to that a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Um, Now, Jen, we're going to drop links and she'll tell you where to find her on
Mhm.
Instagram. But one of the things that I really like about following Jen's profile is that there are always little you're always dropping these posts about, boundaries and people pleasing and what people pleasing looks like, because that's the
Mhm.
other thing. Sometimes we don't really recognize it. So let's talk about what is people pleasing.
People pleasing, like in a nutshell, if I had to like give it in the simplest terms, it's saying yes again, like when you don't want to, right? You're saying yes to other people, you're saying yes to doing things that you don't necessarily want to, but feel like you have to in an effort to be loved, liked, or included.
Mhm.
Right? So,
Right.
like saying yes to volunteering at your children's school, even though you're already super busy, right? You want to serve, but if you say
Mhm.
yes and then you feel resentment or like, how am I going to do this? I can't believe they asked me again. Then it's more people pleasing than it is really doing it from a place of service. And this isn't to make anybody feel guilty that they don't want to serve, but when you're already overscheduled and doing too much, like adding that one extra thing is going to make you feel resentment. So people
Mhm.
pleasing in a nutshell is doing things for others to the point where it affects your own mental, physical, emotional well-being.
This is it. Okay, I love that. And again, that idea of, is it service or people pleasing? And he said
Mhm.
it's not to say we don't try to offer our service and support where we can,
Correct.
but it's that, are we doing this because we want to help or because we feel obligated to? And that's a tricky one. And I
It is,
mean,
for sure.
yeah. And I guess too, there is also, when you've established a pattern of doing certain things or showing
Mhm.
up in a particular way, and then you no longer want to do it.
Right, and people expect it. They know that you're gonna say yes, so they reach out to you because they know that you're the yes girl.
Right?
For sure, yeah. But when it starts to impact your physical, mental, or emotional well-being, that's when it's people pleasing and it's gonna become a pattern that's gonna lead to burnout and overwhelm and, additional physical symptoms, like anxiety and headaches and lack of sleep and all of those different things, so
Right, exactly.
yeah.
So, okay, so let's look at it too, from the perspective of how does it show up in our relationships? I mean,
Mhm,
this is something that it comes up in my work as well, where
mhm,
you realize, and when ladies are complaining about certain things, it's it's patterns that they have actually already set into place. And now it's kind of taken its toll.
Right.
And what do we do about these things? I mean, like,
Well, first of all, like people pleasing in a marriage may look like you always giving in to what your spouse or your partner wants to do, right?
right,
So never, but the hard part is, especially for women and my clients, and this was my story, is that sometimes we don't even know what we want because we're so used to people
right,
pleasing. You know? So
yes,
like when my husband would ask me what I wanted to do, I'd be like, I don't care. What do you want to do? Right? I would always deflect. And I'm actually seeing that now in my teenage daughter. So I'm really trying to get her to start paying
mm,
attention so that I can kind of break that generational pattern of people pleasers with
right,
her. But people pleasing can manifest different ways in relationships. But definitely like always giving in to what the other person wants to do, not speaking up for what you want to do, like always doing things the way they've always been done, even though you may be taking on additional responsibilities. So, you know, one of the things that me and my husband helped navigate during our relationship was when I started working from home, the expectation shifted. Well, you're working from home, so you should be able to do more around the house, right? And so, like, I would be doing the laundry and doing the grocery shopping and doing all this stuff and keeping the house clean while still trying to do a job. And, you know, that was just like, he didn't tell me that, but that was just kind of what I took on as a way to kind of
yeah,
people please and do more for other people. And then finally, I got to the point where I was so overwhelmed, and I'm like, I snapped, right? And that's what happens with people pleasers
yeah,
is that we get to a point where we snap or we yell or we get snarky or we
yes,
just shut down. And I finally had the conversation with him, and he's like, honey, I don't expect you to do all those things, you know? So we were
yeah,
able to like navigate it and get that balance back in. But as women, we want to take it all on, and we also want to take it
yeah,
all on just by ourselves, right? Instead of like leaning in to our village, we
right,
want to just do it all ourselves. And that can really be detrimental to your relationship because your partners want to help. They want to be part of, you know, what you're doing. So
correct,
I may have gone
correct.
off on a tangent, Kim. So if I didn't answer your question,
No, that,
feel
no,
free to redirect me.
that, it's tangents are great because when we get really into it, it's like these are all the little pieces that make it
Yeah.
up. And just even things like sometimes questioning our motivations behind some of the things that we're doing. I mean, sometimes I think of people pleasing too in the sense of, okay, I'm doing this. I am constantly in this pattern. I'm repeating this. Therefore, there must be a reason behind it. It's not just because I feel I have to. This is serving me in some way. It may not be a good way, but
Right.
I might be actually getting some sort of validation out of it, whether it's a good sense of validation or a bad one. Because this martyr complex can also play in, but playing a martyr can make you feel significant.
Right.
So it's like let's let's get honest with ourselves too. Am I doing this so people will say good things about me, or I
Mhm.
feel as if I am being a good person? And being a good person sometimes comes with sacrifice. It's like,
Right. Yes. Right.
what are your motivations?
Right, exactly. And I teach my clients and my daughter and myself and even my son and my husband, I'm like, just take a purposeful pause, is what I call it, and think about
Mhm.
like, what is your reasoning for saying yes? Like, what is your reasoning for wanting to do all this? And so often, especially as women, because of all the societal pressures and the generational patterns, we connect our worth with our work. Right. The amount
Yeah,
of work and service we give makes us feel more worthy. And that's not the case, right? We're inherently born worthy.
yeah,
Depending on what your beliefs are, you know what I mean?
yeah,
God or the
yes,
universe, but you're born worthy. We don't have to work harder to be more worthy. We don't have to
correct,
work harder and do more to be more loved. We
correct.
don't have to work hard and sacrifice to be included with the people that really are important in our lives. And I think that's what I really try to help my clients with is that you are beautiful and wonderful and loved just as you are, not because of how much work and service you're doing out there in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And I think being able to really grasp that and believe that is the beginning to a lot of healing and a
Yes.
lot of yeah. Okay. So we can recognize what people pleasing is. We can also now try to find out why we're doing it and then
Mhm.
redirect our course. Now, one of the things that you mentioned people pleasing can lead to in terms of our mental health as well is anxiety.
Mhm.
So let's talk about anxiety. How do we recognize anxiety in our day-to-day lives? Because sometimes you just think this is normal stress. It's normal to be a little bit uncomfortable. This is everybody goes through things like this. But
Right.
what am I looking for? Like, how do I know that this is becoming a bit overwhelming? What am I looking for?
Well, my story, Kim, is I always come back to like my story and how I started,
Right.
and then like my
Yeah.
clients as well. Like for me, my anxiety was looking like I would get up to empty my bladder at 3 a.m. and then I couldn't get back to sleep, right? That the thoughts started spiraling in my head and I couldn't shut my mind off. So some people are like the inner mean girl, the bully brain is just like going out of control. For me, it was like spiraling thoughts, like all of my to-dos and worries and those sorts of things. For some people, it can lead into a full-fledged panic attack where your heart races and you get really short of breath and you feel like completely out of control and unsafe in your body. For other people, it can be insomnia, having a hard time falling asleep or staying asleep. It can be a rapid heartbeat. It can feel like that fight or flight
Yes.
kind of body where you don't feel good in your body. It can also feel like wired or tired. Wired and tired is another way that I've heard it explained. Um, Anxiety can like clammy hands, like you're starting to get anxious, like you're doing a presentation, but it doesn't go away. It just kind of keeps building. And normal stressors throughout the day are normal. But when it's prolonged chronic stress, it can really start leading to anxiety. It can start leading to, physical symptoms like the rapid heart rate, increase your risk of cardiovascular disease, headaches,
Yeah.
clenching your jaw too much, like all of those things can be like chronic stress. And in our society right now, like we're constantly bombarded with notifications and Amazon Prime, let's do everything quicker and faster and more efficient. And let's reply to everything more quickly and
Yeah.
faster. It's just like it's except when it comes to our teenagers, they don't reply quickly to anything, but they expect us to reply quickly, right? But all of this pressure that we're putting on ourselves and that society's putting on us, and it leads to chronic stress, which can lead to anxiety, and it can really be a problem. One of my clients, when we got on our discovery call, had just gotten back from the ER because she had such a bad anxiety attack. Her
Right.
family was scared. They didn't know what to do for her to help her, so they took her to the ER. So anxiety can really lead to some issues in your relationships because people don't know how to handle your anxiety, or they don't know what's going on. They think they're doing something wrong. Um,
Mhm.
it can
And that.
be
Mhm. So, okay. But and yeah, but there's so much to cover on this one too. And yes, I wanted to touch on how we can start some tips on managing it. But
mm,
as you mentioned, it does impact our closest relationships because
mhm,
sometimes our family members don't know how to handle it.
right.
Sometimes there's a sense of guilt as well. Like, did I cause this?
Mhm.
And then that can exacerbate the situation as well. Um, but what would you say then? Um, if we're looking at anxiety in terms of our marriages then, or our
Mhm.
our long-term partners, what what are some of the scenarios you see manifesting in that area?
Um, the person with the anxiety feels isolated because they feel like
Right.
they're the only one going through it. So they withdraw from their
Right.
from their partner. They don't share. They don't know how to explain anxiety. They beat themselves up in their head thinking that they should be strong enough and be able to will themselves out of anxiety. So I see a lot of like my clients and women dealing with anxiety withdraw from their marriages, kind of
Right.
like pull away, right? Because either they think they should be able to manage it on their own, or they're like, I can't explain this, or they just feel like they're weak. And that's not the case at all, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um, so I see anxiety kind of pulling the partnership apart instead of like leaning in and communicating. And that's where you and I come in to really help people figure out
Mm,
how to communicate their needs and what's going on to cause the anxiety.
that's it.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. Because
And the
that.
partners could be I'm sorry, the partners could be scared, like with my client, like they had no idea what to do because her heart was racing, she was losing her breath.
That's right.
So they're like, "We gotta take you to the ER," which you can just see if somebody doesn't have a panic attack going to the ER, how much more that would kind of make it worse, right? So like her and I work together to help her with her anxiety, but also have a plan if it happens again for her
Right.
family to follow so that they felt more empowered to help her, not scared and not knowing what to do.
That's it. And I mean, at that point, the anxiety, it's taking on a physical
Mhm.
manifestation. So yes, those nerves you want to fix it.
Right, right.
It's like, well, if your heart
Especially men wanna fix it, right? They wanna fix it. That's part of their identity, right? The masculine person wants to fix it, and sometimes they just need to listen, right?
it's like, well, if it's your heart that's giving trouble, we have to get you to a hospital.
Right, right. Yes, because we
I
gotta
don't
fix
have
it.
time
Yeah,
to, yeah. So we can't evaluate why your heart is racing. Your heart is racing. We have to fix that.
right, right. You're short of breath, you're pale, let's just take a yes, yes. Their intentions are good, but typically the more masculine want to fix things, and yeah, so that's another thing I help my clients with. Like when you're talking,
Mhm.
like, do you need to just listen or do you want some help? You know what I mean? And I've learned that with my teenagers too. Do you just want me to listen or do you want me to help? And that
Yeah.
really helps the conversation
Yeah.
open up a little bit more.
Hmm. And actually, and on that note too, is it like sometimes I find, and I know this has been my personal experience too, and I've seen it with clients as well. Sometimes maybe we don't know what we want
Right,
or need at that time, and what we think we need is not the thing
right.
we do. So then, I remember like having this conversation with a client once where she said to me, well, I told my husband I just needed him to listen to me. I'm like, great.
Mm.
So then she told him about her day and what happened and why she was upset. I said, well, what happened? He's like, he just sat there.
That's what you wanted.
but, but you told him you just wanted him to listen. She's
Right.
like, yes. So I'm like, well, what did you want? So she sat there and she thought about it for a second. She's like, I wanted him to come and give me a hug and tell me we'll all be okay. I'm like, but you've only just realized that.
Right. But we expect him to read our minds and know exactly what we want. And that's part of learning, right? That's what I teach my clients is that awareness is key. Like figuring out what you want and need is like the first step, right? It's like you need to know. So I have them again, like take a deep breath and what would help you feel better right now? And I do that with them before they're when they're not having the anxiety. I'm like,
Yeah.
when you're in the anxiety moment, like what would feel good? What do you need? Write that down, talk to your partner about it so that when it happens, because your brain's out of control when you're
Yeah.
having that anxiety, so that way you both know kind of what you need in the moment, but you can't really think of it when you're
No.
in the moment.
And again, it's getting to that stage of understanding it's a process. It's not a one and done. What you
Absolutely.
need, yeah, it constantly changes. And just to be gentle with yourself while you are figuring out what works best for you, understand that your partner is also figuring that out too.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah.
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 And then just having that conversation, like, I know I said I wanted you to listen, but next time, can you also give me a hug and tell me it's going to be okay?
That's it.
So that
That's
they're learning along with you.
yeah.
But yeah, I always say that your mindset is like working your brain is just like going to the gym, right? You're always going to kind of go to the gym to keep in shape, and you always need to work on your mindset, work on your anxiety, because yes, you can lessen it, yes, you can snap out of it more quickly, but you've always got to be working on it because it's designed to keep you kind of in that pattern, right?
Exactly, exactly. And it's a lifelong process. And I think that is something that we think, okay, I'm going to go to a therapist, I'm going to go to a counselor, I'm going to go to a coach, and they're going to fix me. Or this process is going to, I will graduate out of it, and that's just not the case.
It's
Me,
not, because our brains are gonna be brains. They're just going to, like, continually yeah, they're designed to keep us safe and keep us where we are.
exactly. And what we get though, we get tools. We
Mhm.
start to be aware of things. We start knowing how to address it. And then here comes the real kicker. When you're in the middle of going through your episode and you're like, I know what I'm supposed to do, but I really just don't feel like it. I mean, my husband and I had one incredible argument over the weekend, and I was just like, I know what I'm supposed to do, but I don't want to do it. I want
Yes.
to be angry. I want to be upset. I want to not talk to him for hours, which I did, which I knew I'm not supposed to do.
But you also have to process the emotions, right? As long as you don't stay stuck in it, I think you're good. Be mad, let it go through you, and then talk when you're calmed down.
Exactly, and it's just, I mean, that I can laugh about it right now, but I have to tell you, when you are learning these steps and these processes, and you're collecting
Mhm.
your tools, it still is your choice to use it or not to use it.
Right.
You know, and one of the things that we can get out of working with coaches and therapists and counselors is that implementation, that reminder to implement. You
Right.
know, and that's what it does. That is what it does for you. It doesn't fix your situations. um it just helps you be more aware and helps you get to the end of it faster.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
I think that's the
Gets you
other
through it more
thing.
quickly and gives you the tools for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause I mean, I will always have my own life coach, right? Because as we're growing and
Mhm.
healing,
Yes.
or therapy or counseling, but I will always have somebody who I can go to when because I'm and you probably see this a lot of the times too, Kim, like with your um clients is as they grow, they want to continue to grow. They want to be even the better version of themselves. So they want to keep working with you and working with their relationships and moving forward.
Yeah,
Um, and that's why I will always be part of either a mastermind or a life coaching program
yeah,
because I know that I'm going to continue to grow. And I want somebody who's always got my back to help me get out of it more quickly and
that's
navigate
it.
it more quickly. Yeah.
Exactly. And these situations that crop up, they're not necessarily problems.
Right.
What I mean by that is, yes, they're uncomfortable, but they're also helping us to grow. And
Mhm.
it means that the next time we'll be stronger. And
Mhm.
it's a series of those steps. Um, it doesn't mean that something is wrong with you if you're going through these things.
Right.
It doesn't. This is life. It's not meant to be perfect. It's not going to be a fairy tale. That's say that stuff for the storybooks.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Yes.
And we don't even know, because the storybooks end and we don't know what
Right.
happens
What
after.
happens afterwards, right?
Exactly.
Same thing with social media, like, most people are just putting up, like, the highlight reel, right? You don't know what's going on behind the scenes and what work they're doing and putting in.
Exactly. Or when you see their successes, like, you don't know what came before that.
Right,
So
and how hard they worked or what they went through to get there, for sure.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so we've talked about, the idea that, yes, one of the things that we want to be doing is kind of constantly evaluating how we're
Mm,
feeling, what we need, how we're going to deal with it, bringing our partners into those conversations, um, and also encouraging them to have it for themselves too. How can I
absolutely,
support
yeah,
you? How can I help you? What do you need? Um, and normalizing those types of discussions.
yeah,
Um, and also acknowledging that sometimes we just need space, and that's
mhm,
okay too.
yep,
That's
for
perfectly
sure.
fine.
It's really important, and I think so often, especially in today's society, like, we don't wanna feel
Mm,
uncomfortable, right? And I
yeah,
see this with my kids a lot, like, they'll get uncomfortable with something, for instance, like my daughter with volleyball, like, she didn't make the team that she wanted, so I saw her get uncomfortable, and I encouraged her to process those emotions, cry, get mad, get upset, let it go through you instead of picking up your phone and getting on TikTok or Instagram Reels, right? Because so often we just pick up the phone and start scrolling to numb. But if we
yeah,
actually take the time to feel the feelings and feel the uncomfortableness, it'll process through your body in 90 seconds, and then you can move on in a healthier way.
yeah,
Um, but it's just, knowing that you can get through it, that you're strong enough to get through that emotion and just feeling it and moving forward. One of the things that you mentioned that I wanted to piggyback on, Kim, is just like this continued growth. Like for
mm,
me and my husband, before I started doing this mindset work and working with my coach, like I would have all these little episodes throughout the day that would build up, and I would just like little stressors, like little things from my boss. It would just kind of set me on edge. And then by the time my family came home, I snapped. Right. They did one thing wrong and I would snap. Right. And when you look at it, it wasn't them that made me snap. It's all the
no,
little things throughout the day that were building up. So if you can recognize that and kind of build in through your day some little short little walks or brain breaks so that you're letting go of some steam before you get home and take it
Yeah,
out on your partners and your kids.
yeah,
And then the other thing that I always ask my husband is we ask each other is, like I said, do you want me to help or just listen?
yeah,
And really just starting the conversations off that way. Because sometimes we just need to vent. Like if we've had a bad day and that's just kind of getting it out. But the thing we don't want to do is get stuck in that pattern of
yeah.
just venting and not moving through it, like always venting and focusing on the negative instead of shifting it around and focusing on the good and processing those emotions and moving through it.
Exactly,
So,
exactly. And this is it. And it is, as you said, even from the beginning of our conversation, life is not, it's not a flat line. It's ups and downs, and there's good and bad all at the same time. So
right.
it's this idea that we can be upset about something and need to work through it, but we can
Mhm.
also be grateful for something else that's going on in our lives with the
Yeah.
very same person.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, and yeah, as you said, it's that ability to shift our focus from the negative, embrace the positive, and as much as
Find a little win.
doing exactly, exactly. Oh my gosh, and of course the comeback to that is always, but that's not being realistic. You're living in a Pollyanna world. Well, no, because we're not saying ignore the things that need to be addressed, right? You have to address certain issues.
Right.
But the what we want is to just not be living in that state of perpetual fight or flight, that
Right.
constant state of negativity and
Because is that really serving you? That's the other thing that I always have my clients like ask themselves is that thought serving you? Is focusing on the negative and all the negative stuff that's happening, is that serving
Mhm.
you? Is that making you feel like a better person? Is that making you feel good inside? If not, then let's find something that does.
Exactly,
So,
exactly. And it sounds simple, and it's not. It's not.
yeah,
It takes commitment to practicing that, and that's what we want to help people get to, that stage where they can practice it.
right.
It comes
It's
more.
literally rewiring your brain because our brains are designed to focus on the negative and keeping you safe and to find
Exactly.
all of the fearful things that are in your environment, right? But you can rewire your brain to start focusing on finding the good, finding the sunshine, finding the things that
Yeah.
are good with your day. And sometimes it's not easy. Like sometimes a win for me is I didn't lose my cool with my kids today, right? That's a win.
Yeah.
Other times it's I helped a client with an amazing transformation, and that's a bigger win. But either way, I'm focusing on something that went well. But it's also not. I don't think that it's toxic positivity because you've heard that
No,
too, right? It's
no,
realistic. You do want to feel the feels and feel the emotions, but you don't want to stay stuck in it because when you stay
no.
stuck in the negativity, it's not going to help you get where you want, do what you want, be the person, be the woman that you want. You know.
Exactly. And
So
sometimes we have to go through those uncomfortable situations to be a better person. I mean,
yes,
I don't say that lightly. As I said, just this weekend, I went through that process, and it was just like at the end of it, I realized, I'm like, the issues that came up, it was highlighting areas that I can work on, that I want to work on. I just didn't want somebody else pointing it out to me.
right. Because that never feels good, right? We always
Oh,
want to feel it or figure it out ourselves.
exactly, exactly. But we have blinders on when it comes to ourselves. So there's that.
Yes. The other thing why we're still talking about like marriages and anxiety and people pleasing is it's also
Mhm.
helpful to know like what helps your partner. So like with my husband, like when I know we're in a stressful situation, like with our parents aging and their health, and if something comes up, one of them's in the hospital, the first thing that we do is we kind of stop taking care of ourselves. We don't work out, we don't do our breath work, we don't meditate or do the things that we know help us. And knowing what those are, you can just gently remind your partner, hey, I know we're going through a hard time, but make sure you're doing your breath work to keep your anxiety or to help you keep feeling good through this. Because when you take care of yourself in those ups and downs in life, it's also going to allow you to be there for the people that need you. Not only yourself and fill your own cup, but it's going to be there so that you can take care of that person at a higher level. But often, the first thing that we do is withdraw from our self care, right? The things that make
Exactly.
us feel good. So just reminding your partner in a kind way, like not like you better go work out because you're being a you know
Yeah,
person, but hey, maybe go work out to let off some steam. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like saying,
exactly.
yeah,
Yes. No, absolutely important. I mean, and there's just how can I put this without, we underestimate how much benefit our relationship has, how much it benefits our relationship when we put work into us, when we take
Yes.
that time for ourselves.
Yes.
um because you know what, too, on the other side of it, there are certain things that you can do to fill yourself up, to calm yourself, to
Mhm.
soothe yourself, and now you're no longer looking for somebody else to do that for you, and you've taken that burden
Yes.
away from that
Yes.
person. So,
Because that's
yeah.
putting a lot of pressure on your partner for them to be the only one that can get you out of your funk, and to kind of lift you
Exactly.
up. You need to be able to do that yourself and take
Exactly.
that pressure off of them. They can't be everything to you. They need to be your
Can't.
partner,
This is
not your
it.
life coach, not your best friend, not your therapist, right? They need to be
This
your
is it. Oh
partner.
my gosh. Ah, this is the whole thing. Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
yes.
Well, yes, we talked about this in your group recently too.
We did. I'm like, I think I've heard this from Kim.
Oh my gosh. All
And it
right.
resonated with me because sometimes I like expect Tom to be all the things, and I'm like, that's not fair to him. You know what I mean? I have good friends. I have a life coach. I need to lean on them.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would tell that to him because he would want to be all the things because he's a fixer, right?
Yeah.
But that's a lot of pressure for them to be all things to us.
It is. It is. And actually, on that same note, and when we talk about, sitting in the uncomfortable feelings, it's
Mhm.
that, I guess, too, one of the things that I've come to realize over the last few years as well is that not everything that I am aggravated about or irritated by do I need to speak about.
Mhm.
And I say, well, that's communication. Well, actually, no, that's not always communication. That sometimes being aggravated and um, nagging can make you feel a little better with your venting, but then what is the environment that you're creating?
Right.
And that one is really easy to miss. And it again, that's one of the things that I have to kind of always remind myself, what is it like to live with me? I know what it's like to live with somebody else, but what is their experience of me and my moods? Because the same way our partner's moods impact us, our moods impact them. And yes, we have to go through the process of taking ownership of our own behaviors, our own reactions, but it's just that little piece to be mindful of,
Mhm.
you know, it, but yeah.
Yeah. I find I nag more with my children.
Yes.
I have to be mindful of that too. Like why am I nagging my son? Why have I told him 5 times to take out the trash? Like, why am I nagging, right? I just need to
Yeah.
trust that he'll do it. And if he doesn't, then I'll have to inflict the consequence. But it's also
Right.
kind of a control thing. Like, I'm like, I need to step out of control and let him grow into the young man he needs to be, right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
And
Exactly.
recognizing that and stepping back and say, why do I feel the need to nag him? Or why am I like, or my husband, and
Mm,
sometimes as women and as the matriarchs of the family, it can be control. Like we want,
yeah.
I'm sharing my story again, but like with my husband,
No.
like when I had surgery with my ankle, like I expected him to cook and clean and do all the laundry like I did, not
Right.
like he did. And I had to sit back and say, I need to give up control and know that as long as it's done, it's okay.
Yeah.
As long as the kids are alive and we're all fed, it's okay. He can do it his way. I can give up that control. So,
Yes. Oh my gosh. No, but this is very, very true. I mean,
right? We can be controlling.
yep, yep. And the times when I'm sick and my husband will do the laundry, and I get out of bed and I just see piles of laundry, and I'm like, Why? Just
Right.
pack it into a basket and take it down to the like, but I'm not doing it, so let it
Right.
go.
It's okay. It's getting done. Just maybe not the way we want it done, but it's still getting done. The kids are alive. We're fed. We're good. Yeah.
We're good. We're good. It's all good. Yes, I mean, we can laugh about it. It is funny, but sometimes when you're in the middle of it,
It's hard.
it's
Hmm.
hard. Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. Oh gosh, but yes.
Mhm.
Okay, now, um, two more things we want to touch on before we start wrapping up. It's boundaries and overcoming overwhelm. And I guess before we go to the boundaries, just let's talk about the overwhelm. I'm talking about the overwhelm because as we've mentioned before, our partners want to help, or our partners might be helping. and then we see it as they're doing it wrong. And then it's, that exacerbates all the circumstances, you know.
Mhm.
Um, so I guess maybe I want to touch on that a little bit.
Okay.
Uh, Learning to accept that help, to receive that help. I mean, what does that even look like? Because some people will tell you, well, they just don't help. I'm like, let's rewind a little bit. And if we really unpack it, it's not that our partners never help.
Mhm.
It's just that we don't know how to accept the help
Or ask for help.
or
Yeah.
ask for help. And then, of course, now we're using this word help, and that's another
Mhm.
sore spot, right? Because they're like, well, they are adults too, and so why is it helping when it should just be that they're doing the things that they're supposed to do? I'm like, okay, well, that's a perspective shift there too. But also, if you've taken on particular roles,
Mhm.
and this comes back to the people pleasing aspect, maybe a little bit, if
I was
you
gonna say it all ties back to people
have
pleasing and boundaries and and perfectionism. Yeah, it's all
perfectionism, if there's a particular pattern that you've established, and now you're angry because that pattern exists.
Mhm.
So why we're using the word help, it's not that your partner doesn't have their role to play, but it's if this is what you have accepted on your plate and you want
Mhm.
assistance with it, how do you ask for help? How do you say
And
to, I
I
don't want this piece anymore?
Right. And that's what happens is that as people pleasers, we take everything on until we get burned out and overwhelmed, and then we
Right.
snap. And that's not fair to anybody, right? Because it's our partners are like, well, you've been doing it all along. How am I supposed to read your mind and know that all of a sudden you want me to start chipping in more, right?
Yeah.
And that's typically the pattern that I see is that as majority of women, we take on that role of doing all the things for all the people in our effort to be loved, accepted, seen as a good mom, seen as a good wife, um, seen as a good like PTO member, for your
Yeah.
kid's school, like all of those things. And then it gets to the point where you don't want it anymore. And then you think your partner should be able to read your mind and step in. Well, we've got to give them some credit too, because for 10 years of your marriage, you've been doing all of the things and now you're burnt out and overwhelmed and you need to let them in, right? You need to let them in and say, I've been doing all of this and I am overwhelmed now. I am feeling burned out. I am feeling more anxious and it's affecting my sleep. And I need you to do XYZ. You don't have to say you help because you want them to take it on,
Yeah.
whatever word resonates with you more, but just establishing that, but recognizing that you have been doing it all and you're ready for a change is awareness. That's the first
Right.
key. And then communicating to your partner what you need from them moving forward and your kids. It doesn't all need to go. I mean, if you guys have kids that are able to do things around the house, empower them to do things. It will serve them in the future.
Yeah.
But letting people know what you need for this relationship to be healthy again, right?
Yeah.
Don't beat yourself up for the past. Just figure out what you need and what would be helpful because also the more masculine energy, our partners, they have a different kind of brain than us women do, right? Like I always say, like we can walk into a room and see everything in our house that needs to be done. Our husband walks in after work and he sees the sofa and wants to go sit down and chill out, right? And he does. We went to go chill out on the sofa. Our mind would be racing with all the things that we had to do, right? Our brains are
Yeah,
wired differently.
they are.
But your husband is a fixer, so he wants to help fix it, but you have to tell him like what would be most helpful, right? So like for most of my clients, I tell them, let your husband like whatever you think he would be most helpful at, like whatever you need the most help with, ask him to start doing that. And recognize that he might need some reminders because he's been doing things, you've been doing this for 10 years now, and you're
Mm,
asking him to do it. So he might still need some reminders. And you also have to give that control and let him do it his way, as long as it gets done, right?
exactly.
And just
Exactly.
opening up that conversation, but not beating yourself up for the past, not beating him up for not reading your mind, just recognizing that it's time for a change and opening up that conversation.
And now I'll tell you what is very often the comeback to that, which is like, Why should I have to tell him? Why should I have to remind him? Now I have the mental load of not just doing the thing and doing it, but now I have to also remember to remind him to do it. He's a grown person. Now, my response to that generally is perfectly valid. I understand where you're coming from,
Mhm.
but is that where you want to reside?
Right.
Are you willing to sit here and complain about the things not being done? Are you willing to sit here and complain about you having to do it all? And now, when the solution may be that you have to tell someone about how to do it or when to do it, or not even not a how and when, because that's what we said. Leave that up to them, empower them to do it. But when the solution might be to let them know, I want your help with that. Now you're going to complain about having to do that part too. It's like you have to bend somewhere.
Right. Right.
It's like, you are not perfect either. We
Right.
know our partners aren't perfect, but we have to remember we aren't either. And it's
And
not,
also it's been a pattern for 10, like, I'm just giving the example of 10 years. Like,
yeah,
people, I mean, if you've been doing things for 10 years and then all of a sudden you expect your husband to do it all the time, I mean, that's just an unrealistic expectation because we are human, right? We do
right.
settle into these patterns. And would you be upset if it was the same thing with your 5-year-old? No, because you're going to keep reminding them to do things the way that you want them, reminding them to do things. So,
Yeah,
yeah, giving everybody some grace, having some grace for everybody to move forward in the healthiest way for everybody.
exactly, exactly. All right. So, okay. But actually this might work well into going into those boundaries, right? Because okay, let's be real. There are times where it's not just about us letting go. It's not just about us kind of um trying to repattern our thinking, but I mean that is useful. But sometimes we just need healthy boundaries. So
Mhm.
first of all, what are healthy boundaries? Because there's this idea that boundaries, and I always say the word boundary actually isn't necessarily all that there is to it. The word healthy needs to come, we need to caveat it. We want
Right.
healthy boundaries. What are
Correct.
healthy boundaries?
Well, first of all, like, boundaries just get a bad rap, right? The word boundary itself, people just think you're putting up a wall, you're shutting people out. And you can certainly do that if you have to in order to make the relationship healthy. But there are like so many healthy boundaries that you can set. And I really almost don't want to use the word boundaries. It's just really learning how to effectively communicate your wants, your needs, and your desires to
Right.
make that relationship healthier, right? So when you start thinking about it like that, you're like, oh, okay. It's not a boundary like a wall you're setting up. It's a way to help make that relationship healthier for you in a way that should be received from the other person. And again, when we're talking about this, Kim, there's always going to be people in our life that can be more of a narcissistic personality, and boundaries aren't going to work for that type of person,
Right.
right? That's when you really have to work with your coach or a counselor or therapist to figure out what is healthiest and safest for you. So if you have those people in your life that are more of a narcissistic personality, boundaries aren't going to work for them because they have that tendency. But a boundary is simply a way of effectively communicating what you want, need, or desire in that relationship for it to be better or healthier for you. Um, and the thing as women that we tend to do is worry about the other person's response,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or we don't really know what we want. So I really help my clients like figure out like, what do you want in this relationship? What do you want it to look like? And then we figure out some things that they can effectively say to kind of really make that relationship healthier. An example of a boundary is just like we were talking about with the laundry. I mean, I need a new boundary could be, I need you to help me with the laundry,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Right.
it's really that, and I need you to help with the laundry and do that twice a week. If not, if you don't remember, then I'll remind you, right? So you're kind of setting the boundary, you're setting the expectation, you're going to set what the follow up's going to be. Um, or a boundary is like if you get asked, if you and your husband are very social, but you're getting to the point where you're tired and you don't always want to say yes to all of the things, just say thanks for thinking of me, but we can't make it this time. That's a
Right.
boundary, right? Just, but you need to know we don't
Yeah.
want to do that, right?
Yeah.
The other thing that we tend to want to do, especially as women, is give a reason why. You don't
Right.
have to, right? And most people, it's so funny because my clients, I'll be like, just say this, like, because sometimes words are really hard when you're when you're in an environment where you've always said yes, like figuring out what to say instead of yes is hard. So I give my clients lots of words, and then we practice it before the situation comes up. We kind of role play.
Yeah.
And I had this client who, her and her husband always were doing all these social events to the point where they were both so worn out and not able to focus on their relationship. And I said, the next dinner date you guys get, just say, thanks for thinking of us. We can't make this one. No reason. And she's like, Jen, they didn't even ask why. I'm like, I know. Isn't it amazing? They just accepted your boundary. And she got so efficient at setting boundaries that then she had all this time to start playing tennis, which was one of her goals, like with the mastermind, is to like have time for myself. And I was like, look at you setting boundaries and now having time to play tennis. So boundaries don't have to be a negative thing. It's just a way of establishing to make the relationship healthier and more of what you need.
Exactly. And again, that whole idea of when it's healthier, when you're being filled up, how you show up as a partner is even better.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
okay. Now, before, okay, I want you to leave us with a word of advice. But before that, I did mention earlier on that Jen has a wonderful Instagram page, and I love seeing her reminders pop up every so often, and they really are valuable reminders. They're like little check-ins. Sometimes I'm like, oh, look what I no longer do, and I give myself a pat on the back. And sometimes I'm like, oh crap, I still have to work on this piece. So,
Works in progress. We're all works in progress. Yeah.
where can we find you?
On Instagram, I'm at jenn.hynes. So just like my name is here on the board, that's how you'll find me on Instagram is jen.hynes, Hynes. Yep.
Lovely. And
Yeah,
you're on LinkedIn as well.
I
And
am.
yes, and if someone wants to work with you, like, I mean, what does that look like? Find you on Instagram, get in contact with you.
Yeah, find me on Instagram and send me a message. I also have a website. It's jenhines.limitlesscoaching.com. So that's an easy way to also find me. But it's super easy. Just find me on Instagram and send me a message and just say, or check out my social media post and kind of see if it resonates with you. And then you can go to my profile link in my Instagram, and also there's some freebies there. There's discovering a discovery call with me. I offer a 30 to 60-minute discovery call where you can just hop on the phone with me and we'll talk about what's going on in your life and how I can possibly help. Not a high pressure sales call. It's just for us to connect. And you'll leave the call whether we work together or not with 3 or 4 things that can help you move forward with what you're working on.
Fantastic. All
Yeah.
right. Well, on that note, what advice? So, like, what advice would you leave us with then? For that, if there's a lady listening here who feels held
Yes.
back by anxiety, and
Mhm.
it's preventing her from having the type of relationships that she wants, type of life that she wants, what are your words to her?
The main message I think that you probably heard throughout our conversations with Kim is that you deserve the life you want. You deserve to have that more harmonious, more balanced, more fulfilled life. And there's so many different things that you can do to start overcoming your anxiety. Like I said, you can check out some of the freebies in my profile. But the first thing is that I want you to know, and Kim wants you to know, is that you deserve to feel better. You deserve to beat your anxiety. And there are ways to overcome that anxiety so that you can start living the life you've always wanted and being the woman you've always wanted to be.
Perfect. Well said. And thank you very much, Jen. It was
Thank you,
lovely
Kim.
to
This
have
has been
you.
fantastic.
Right. All right. So I hope you're listening. I hope that you are taking this advice to heart and going to implement it. So this show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check it out at spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. See you next week.